What's up, guys? We are back with another Masters of the Universe review, but we're jumping back into the Mondo side of things, and it's been a little while, right? I can't think of the last one that I got my hands on when it comes to a 1/6 scale Mondo. It was either Scareglow or it was either Hordak. I don't remember which one came out last. But today we're taking a look at something a little bit different too. So this is the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive. This is when he went up during San Diego, the Revelation Skeletor. And I don't know if this is the beginnings of a new subline within the 1/6 scale stuff, but he's definitely a one-off for now because he is very much Revelation themed, and he's also kind of animation cell shaded. In many ways too, so he's not necessarily the exact same kind of thing that we've seen throughout the 1/6 scale line so far. He does come in some pretty fancy packaging though, which is very much par for the course with this line. It is very different stuff though. Generally speaking, all of the other stuff has all been very themed, and they're all been very much in line with one another. This guy is very, very different. Now he comes in a pretty fantastic box here. It's very premium. It's got magnetic clasps on the side, so you can keep it all shut and looking pretty. But it's got some fantastic artwork on the front by Florian Bertmer. This thing looks just tremendous. So you've got Skeletor there with the power sword in front of Castle Grayskull, and then the back has got a shot of the actual product. So you can see Skeletor there with the Havoc staff laughing maniacally. But like I said, this does have a magnetic flap, so you can pop it open, and you've got a shot of Castle Grayskull here done up in Skeletor colors, and then you've got the figure there actually within that big window. So if by some crazy chance you're not going to open this guy, you can still take a peek at him. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our Mondo 1/6 scale Revelation Skeletor. And I gotta say right off the bat, I am pretty happy with this guy. There is a lot that is different about this figure from any other Mondo so far. He has new articulation in certain areas. He seems to be more stable. Of course, he has an entirely different kind of aesthetic and just goal that they're going for, because they're very much, in this instance, they're very much going for a more animation accurate rather than Mondoizing him like they do with all the others. All the others have been very much Mondo's take on Masters. This is very much Mondo trying to do Revelation Skeletor. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. He's still very familiar territory to what you might already own from the 1/6 Master stuff, but he's still, at the same time, very different, if that in any way makes sense. So we've got a head up here that is on a ball peg, so he can look up, he can look down pretty good. You've got tilt, side to side, you've got rotation. Now, one thing that's interesting about this head setup is that the head pegs into the peg on the neck. The cowl actually pegs onto the head. There's a peg on the back of the head. So it's kind of an interesting setup. The jaw on all of these heads, even all the swappable heads, is articulated. So you've got an articulating jaw there. And of course, it's going to move as far as you allow it based on where the head is. The arms go out at the shoulder. He does, of course, have a plastic cape. That's a difference here with this line, so it is going to get in the way a little bit. Everything here feels tight, but not in a sense that it's a negative. Everything just sort of feels like how you want it to. You've got swivel. We've got bicep swivel. Double jointed elbows. Everything's tight, and I'm sure you're going to hear it. But double jointed elbows, so that's a difference. We've still got our ball hinges for the wrists, so you've got swivel and hinge. But I really, really like the range on these very creaky elbows. There's a lot of ratchets all over this figure. We've got a diaphragm cut. He goes backwards a little bit. Forwards only slightly. Really nice tilt though. And it's also a very ratchety swivel point. He does have a waist twist down here. I'm not sure if it's a full-on ball peg, but there is some shimmy forward and backward. Not the greatest. Legs go out, and they are super, super easy to move. They kick forward pretty much all the way. I mean, the legs are afforded great range out because the skirt piece is cut. It's not cut as well on the front, but he still kicks pretty much all the way. backward really nicely. You've got a thigh twist up there. We do have double jointed knees. They only go back that far, however. Pretty good range though. One thing that's different though between the other releases is that the previous figures would have swivel at this knee, and I'm pretty happy with the fact that they did not include that. I've never really been a big fan of that because it makes the knee look kind of janky. There is no boot cut on this figure though, but we do have some much improved ankles. And when I say much improved, I mean it. They are super, super sturdy. However, there is no forward kick on these ankles. They don't go forward, which I really don't like. They go backwards really, really, really far, and you've got a ratcheted rocker. So he is very, very stable to just sort of plant down, and he's going to stick. But I kind of feel like at the same time, while I'm saying that he's very stable, he has to be sort of planted in a certain way to make it work really, really well. He kind of has to be flat-footed. But so far, you know, once you get him in that sort of flat-footed pose, he just sort of stays there. So everything is really tight. Range of motion is pretty good. I mean, I'm really happy with these elbows. That's a huge improvement. The diaphragm cut is pretty nice. In general, the Mondo figures have always been kind of bricks at the torso, so they have done quite a bit of work to make that just, well, work a little bit better. Now, when it really comes to these figures, though, the name of the game for me personally has always been kind of, even since, you know, day one with He-Man, was the aesthetics. I've always really enjoyed Mondo's, well, Mondoized versions of Master stuff. This is not that. It's a different thing. They are very much going for a certain style, and you know, whether or not this is the beginnings of a new line, I really don't know. But even if he's a one-off, I like what they're doing here. I like the fact that we have this new articulation without sacrificing sculpt, because quite frankly, I think even with the double joints, this guy looks better at the joints than the older figures do, and I really like the proportions on this body. He is a little bit more lithe. He's not just He-Man repainted. And I mean, I know this is Masters, so repaints and reuse is how it works. But animation is animation, and this looks a lot more like Skeletor in this instance than, you know, if they had just made him a He-Man body and given him a blue paint job. So I'm really, really happy with this. I do like the cell shading on it. I will say that I probably would prefer if he didn't have it, just because, you know, I think this version of Skeletor looks really good to begin with. The cell shading, of course, implies a very certain aspect and certain art direction for this line, so I'm not upset about it, and I get what they're going for, but I think they achieve it pretty well. The armor looks great. You know, it's very Telltale Skeletor. Of course, Revelation Skeletor does bring through all those classic hallmarks into the new show. So we've got all of that stuff. You've got the, you know, the monster arms. You've got the monster feet. We've got our purple accented armor. You've got the bone cross. You do, of course, again, have all that cell shading all over it, and it is sort of cast in shadow. So, you know, this is the shadowed half versus this is the side that's in the light, because you can see, you know, more of that sort of dark purple on that side. We do have the plastic cape, and I was really back and forth on this before I actually got him. And frankly, I think I might like this better than if they had just given him one of the old fabric capes. The fabric capes in this line have been hit or miss for me. Scareglow is the only one that has one that I truly, absolutely love because of the fact that, well, it's wired. This is exactly what they're going for in terms of sort of delivering on an aesthetic. This is a version of Skeletor's cape sort of wrapped around him a little bit, sort of, you know, daintily flowing over his back in a certain way. You know, they're trying to sell a certain idea and a certain aesthetic with this, and I think it works pretty well. It doesn't get in the way too much. There really isn't anything that's stopping him from moving all that well. I mean, of course, it's going to get in the way when you swing the arm all the way up, but even then, I've not found it to be that big of a problem. And I think it hangs on him really well. It doesn't hit the ground. I mean, you know, it doesn't actually go down to his feet. So that kind of stuff I'm pretty happy with. And the only way it could have been better is if it was an actual wired cape. But as we've seen with this line, they don't always give those to every figure for whatever reason. And then, of course, you know, he's topped off with a head sculpt that, again, I think is very, very much in line with the aesthetics of Revelation. This iteration, this version of Skeletor, you know, the face is very much on the yellow side of the spectrum. We've still got the very, you know, white teeth, the cowl. I think the cowl is achieved pretty well. I will say that it is a little bit difficult to, in some cases, swap these heads apart. I had to heat this head up just to make sure everything was on there correctly. Getting the cowl onto the peg that's in there was a little bit difficult, but it wasn't too bad. And after I did it a few times, it's kind of, you know, just like a reflex now. But I think the head sculpt looks great. It very much has that animated vibe with those little hits of black line work everywhere. So again, it's very much super detailed, but at the same time detailed in a very specific way, but not Mondo-ized. It just has sort of their flair to it. So this guy's really cool. I mean, I'm really happy with him. I think he looks tremendous. He's certainly the best interpretation of Revelation Skeletor that I've gotten my hands on in any format right now. And I think that this new body, these new parts, all that stuff work to make just a really, really good looking figure. Now, as far as accessories goes, this Skeletor comes with a decent amount, but I will say he doesn't come with nearly as much as essentially any other Mondo figure thus far. And I'm assuming that's mostly because this version of Skeletor, again, they're doing a very specific thing, and he really doesn't have a whole lot of stuff. Like, if you think about what happens in Revelation, he doesn't exactly have a lot of gadgetry or anything like that. So you get kind of all the hallmarks, basically. So to start with, we get some extra skulls. I've got one on here right now, and you can see that this one has a different expression. So the first one that I had on him, he was sort of, you know, angry, you know, typical angry Skeletor kind of head. And then we've got this one where he's like worried, which is a pretty uncommon thing to get. I don't know that I really have any others like that. We've got, you know, let's just run through all of them. So you've got the worried one. Here is, and this is what they look like outside. And there's the peg I was talking about that the cowl attaches to. So this one is one where he is super angry. You know, he's screaming. You've got a really, like what would be a furrowed brow, you know, if he had eyebrows. We've got one here where he's doing like a raised eyebrow, so like a curious, a quizzical look. And again, they all have the articulated jaws. And then our sort of standard mad, maniacal one. He's certainly not happy here, or maybe he's happy for Skeletor. And then we get a bunch of hands. We get fists on him in the box. You get a set of style posy hands here. So, you know, like magic, sorcery kind of hands. You get, you know, 2 of each of these hands. We get some flat splayed finger, palm open kind of hands. And then we also get a set of gripping hands. And I will stress that these are incredibly tight. There is a 0 chance you are getting anything into these hands without heating them up. Mostly because he's got really long fingernails. So if you even try to pry those up, there's a good chance you are going to hurt yourself in the process. So don't even chance it. Just heat them up. We get the Revelation Power Sword, which looks just terrific. I'm really happy with this. The finish on it is great. Super metallic-y, nice and long. I mean, this thing goes about down to his knees. So this is really good. I'm happy with this. Very, very, very happy with this. Of course, we get the Havoc Staff also. And this looks great. Tons of detail on it. That ram skull up there looks awesome. Super big. I mean, it's taller than Skeletor is. There's a lot here. It is, and as I'm sure you can imagine, it is very, very top heavy. It doesn't exactly weigh a lot, like in the grand scheme of things, but it's so heavy that at the top, that I mean, like, it's just lopsided. The staff itself almost weighs nothing by comparison, but it does look tremendous, and it has one hidden little thing, so you can pop the base off, and you can put the end of it on that he uses to impale He-Man, or Adam, rather, mid-transformation. Spoiler alert, it's too late. Spoiler alerts are over at this point. This is a really cool little touch. I wasn't aware that this was actually included, and I almost overlooked it in the tray. But you can pop that on there, and maybe, just maybe, that hints that we're going to get another figure at this, because he needs somebody to kill. Right, but this Havoc Staff just looks amazing. I'm very, very, very happy with that. And then in typical Mondo 1/6 scale fashion, we do get a stand for this. This is very different from the norm for the He-Man stuff. We usually get one that's like in the shape of the Mondo M, and this is just a very basic stand. I don't really care about it. It's just sort of it's a thing I noticed. So you get a decent array of heads, a decent array of hands, and you get 2 weapons plus the little surprise spear tip. I do wish there was more stuff here. I won't lie about that. I do wish there was more stuff, but ultimately, I mean, this is basically all you really need for a Skeletor. So yeah, overall, really, really happy with this. I honestly was not sure what to expect with this figure because he's so different from the rest, and different isn't always a bad thing. It's, in this case, a very good thing, because I think that they have made some tremendous changes to the way these figures are constructed, starting with this guy. I don't know if, when, how we're ever going to see some of this stuff creep into the rest of the normal line as things sort of progress, and I know they're definitely making changes to that stuff as things go along, but there's a lot about this figure that I really like and stuff that I would like to see going forward in the regular figures. He looks great, he has some great range of motion, everything is really, really tight, tight in a good way, of course, new articulation, new double jointed features, and then he comes with a solid array of accessories. It's not the greatest array when it comes to piece count, but it's all the stuff you need. Good heads, good hands, Havoc staff that just looks amazing, and then a really cool new power sword. So that's going to do it for this look at the Mondo 1/6 scale Masters of the Universe Revelation Skeletor. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.